Stock futures under pressure again this morning. You got the Nasdaq leading those declines, on track to open the day off just about 1.7%. You have Nvidia and Tesla among the biggest underperformers of the Mag 7 names here amid the sell-off that we're seeing in chip stocks. And Tesla is seeing its price target slashed by Baird. Joining us now to make sense of the tech trade, we want to bring in Dan Ives. He's Wedbush Securities Global Head of Technology Research. Dan, it's great to have you on here this morning. So help us make sense of what is happening here. The selling to you, is that justified or is this a bit of an overreaction?
I mean, look, it's a growth scare, right? I mean, if you look at the tariffs, I mean, the concern is like, what does this mean for the AI trade, chips, export controls? It's added uncertainty. But in my opinion, it doesn't change the demand cycle. In other words, this is not going to end the tech bull market. It's a scare, but I believe it's more opportunities than time to head for the hills.
What is that opportunity, Dan? I guess where is that opportunity?
I mean, look, I continue to think Mag 7, when you look stronger and get stronger in terms of this tech trade. I mean, we just came back from Asia, demand 15 to 1 for Nvidia when it comes to next gen chips. That's not changing. So the point is that I think when you're able to kind of go through periods like this, and I get that there's a lot of uncertainty, but just as we navigated tariffs in 18 and 19, and just like we've navigated other macro issues, that's our view. It is the time to own the winners. You look at these names like an Nvidia. You look at names like Palantir. You look what I believe Apple, which is obviously holding up very strong, and a lot of the other Mag 7, Microsoft, Alphabet, and others.
So, Dan, is this very much more so driven by macro concerns rather than sector-specific concerns?
I think 70% macro. I mean, the worry is like you just don't know rules of the game. So you don't know when you wake up, whether it's US or Asia, what's coming out of the 202 area code. Retaliatory, what does it mean? It adds uncertainty. And obviously, like in the risk-on environment, you've seen risk off. You see what happens in the 10-year. And now you're seeing growth investors just get more and more concerned. But when it comes to tech, even on some of the knee-jerks like a Marvell or, Mongo and others, take a step back. Like the AI trade and the strength is just going to continue to accelerate.
Dan, are those gains, though, capped until we get some more clarity on the macro front when it comes especially here to tariffs?
Yeah, I think it's range bound. I wouldn't necessarily say it's range bound, but it does speak to our view that like, this is all a game of high stakes poker. If you think tariffs are going to continue and you start the trajectory out, when it lasts through 2026, then all bets are off. But as we all know, I mean, this is all a game that ultimately is about negotiations. That's how Trump goes about it. And, my view is being in DC, called 3-4 weeks ago, and even, being in Asia, my sense is like cooler heads prevail and you're going to get to deals. And I think a lot of this is ultimately going to be bark worse than bite, but it's nervous. And that's creating this sort of angst and white knuckle period that we're seeing.
Dan, I'm curious, how would you assess, or what is your assessment so far of the tech industry's approach here to the Trump administration? There's a report out this morning that tech leaders are going to be meeting once again with Trump's administration next week. What do the next several years look like here under this administration?
Look, it's embracing, right? I mean, much different than sort of arm's length and almost much more of a negative view in terms of first administration. Okay, then there's a few things. One, for the first time in 30 years, tech's leading, in U.S. versus China, because of AI, because of the trade, because of Nvidia, because of ultimately what we've seen in terms of the AI revolution, really being a U.S. story, right? Even when it comes to DeepSeek, obviously the Singapore story and everything else, you realize that was a lot different than maybe what initially thought. When it comes to Europe, I think there's a view like they're done with the big brothers watching. Like they want U.S. to have much more strong arm tactics in terms of some of the frustration that tech companies have faced. So I do think it's much more of an embracing of the Beltway and Trump administration, especially relative to what we saw in Trump first administration.
Dan, let's talk about what is going on on a global scale, because you have Alibaba launching potentially this DeepSeek rival. That's obviously causing some ripple effects here in the markets this morning. I'm curious, is it a threat to U.S.'s AI dominance?
See, I don't view it as a threat just because it always goes back to DeepSeek, 6 million not using next-gen NVIDIA hardware. I mean, that the same chances that I'm playing in the NBA this week, right? So the reality is that Baba we're bullish on Baba. And I don't view it as necessarily a competitive threat because it's just a matter of time till Apple and Alibaba partner. And ultimately, Bob is going to be Apple's partner when it comes to AI in China. Innovation is going to continue to increase more and more. These models, more enterprise going down the path, whether it's China or US. Export controls will be there, but the reality is there's only one chip in the world that's fueling AI revolution. It's godfather of AI, Jensen Nvidia.
Dan, outside of the Mag 7, outside of names like Nvidia, what do you like?
I think it's in software. I think you look at name of Messi of AI, Palantir, you look at Salesforce.com. I think Mongo selling off like this is a huge opportunity. Look at names like Snowflake. I think more and more software on the use cases is going to be the ones that benefit. And again, I think we're going to look at this as a growth scare, but not something that dramatically changes our view of the trajectory where tech's going next few years.
So Dan, it sounds like you're buying the dip here.
Oh, I think look that, and that's been our playbook, for decades. Like it's easy, the macro, right? It scares you, and then you look back and be like, why not own the winners? Why not own the dip? But it just comes down to like in the chaos creates opportunities, and that's our view.
All right, Dan, always great to get your perspective. Thanks so much for hopping on with us here this morning.